Hey, my name is Eric. In today's video, we're talking about a deck cost calculator. And what you're seeing on the screen right here is exactly that. This is a tool that you can use that is going to help you figure out what your deck materials are going to cost you using 25 different lines from 5 different brands and what it's going to cost down to the penny, including sales tax for you in materials. So the way I created this was I created and started with a master sheet which has all this information, which we'll get into in a little bit, that'll help you decide which product is the right fit for your needs. But you came here for a cost calculator, so I want to explain that and get into it. And I should mention that this sheet is available to you for free. It is in the description of this video. All I ask is that if you do click that you make a copy for yourself and you use that copy. You're not going to be able to edit any of these cells except for on the copy that you make for yourself. So you'll have to do that first thing. So when you're using this tool, the way it works is you start with a deck budget. So whatever you have in mind, you put it in there and you can just put in, let's say $3,000. When you hit enter, it automatically puts in the money. Now for how many square feet, most people are familiar with square footage. If you have a 10 foot by 20 foot deck, you simply multiply those two things together to get 200. But you'll notice here that I put a note in here to add 10%. The reason for that is just like waste and extra materials. So if you had a 200 square foot deck, what I would ask is you'd multiply that by 10% to give you 220 total square feet. Now for your state sales tax, this is pretty easy. Like I live in New York State and I'm gonna put in sales tax in the year. And then I will quickly see that we have an 8% here. So the way this works is you just put in the number and then hit enter and it automatically populates. And what it just did is it made all the linear foot numbers, which I'm going to explain in a second, 8% more expensive. Because I want you to have an idea of what the materials are going to cost based on your state's sales tax as well. So the next thing I want to explain is this row here where it says equals this many linear feet with a 6-inch nominal width and it says 440. You'll notice that this number is double this number for the square footage. So if you're not familiar with nominal width, the way that works is nominal width is talking about what the actual functional width of the board is. So this particular board has a 6-inch nominal width, but if you were to measure it, it's really like 5.5 inches wide. They say that because when you're putting another board up to it, typically you're not butting the boards up. There's a little bit of space, and that space creates your nominal width of 6 inches. Now, the difference between a linear foot that you see here and your square foot mentioned here, most people are familiar with square footage, but not as familiar with linear footage. Linear foot is simply the length of the board that you have. Doesn't matter if the board is 2 inches wide, 2 feet wide, you're talking about the length of the board. So this particular sample that I'm holding here is a Trex composite decking, which I'll get into in a little bit as well, but it is 12 inches long. So it is 1 foot, 12 inches of linear footage, or excuse me, 1 foot of linear feet. And then it is 6 inches wide. So the square footage of this would be 6 inches times 12 inches, which would give you a half a foot. But the linear foot of this is 1. So if you have a board that's 5 feet long, it is 5 linear feet. So that is where that number is coming from. Now, if you look below at the next cell here, cost of clips or fasteners, a lot of these newer decks, especially the composites and PVCs, they have grooves in the side. And that allows you to put in these fasteners and clips that make it so that you don't have to screw directly into the board, and it makes it so they're hidden. What I have found is that they're typically around 70 to 90 cents per square foot. So what I did is I figured $1 per square foot just to be on the safe side. So whatever you put in your square footage, that's where that 220 number is going to come in. If I changed this to 500, this number is going to change to 500 as well. So going back, putting this to 220, it is now 220 for that. And then the cost of the wood substructure, I'll put up on screen examples of what a substructure is. And now that you see the image, you're like, oh, okay, I get it, the wood substructure. According to Trex and a calculator they have, they estimate that that structure costs about $5 per square foot of your deck for materials. So I went along with that and put in a $5 estimate there. So this number right here, all it's doing is it's taking your square footage, multiplying it by 5, and also putting an 8% sales tax in this particular case on, but it's going to put in whatever numbers you have. So then from here, what happens is this spreadsheet populates all the information for these different brands. And the reason I chose these brands is these are some of the larger ones that are at least in the United States, Fiberon, Trex, TimberTech, Roby Decking, and Advantage Lumber. If you're looking at Roby Decking and Advantage Lumber, those are actually 2 brands that supply actual real wood. But what you'll see is a lot of times now PVC and composites are a little bit more popular. And where you're getting these numbers right here is mostly, except for Roby Decking and Advantage Lumber, are mostly Home Depot and Lowe's pricing. What I did is I looked up their 6-inch wide, 12-foot long boards, and I figured out what it cost per linear foot for that board. And then these numbers are inflated a little bit, as you can see. If I put 0 for the price here, this is the numbers that you will see on Home Depot and Lowe's as of making this video. It's September 2020, but there is an 8% sales tax added in this particular example. So what happens is in this row here with the decking, it's simply taking your linear foot and then it's multiplying it by how many linear feet you need, and that's where you're getting these numbers here. Decking and clips is just adding in the 220, so 2,561 plus 220 equals this number. And then the substructure, it's adding in this number as well. As far as railings, I left that off because that can vary widely. I'll put it on the screen right now, my architectural drawings of the deck I'm going to be putting in. And even though it's a larger deck, you'll notice that the railings are very small. So it's hard to put that into a spreadsheet. So that might be something that you might want to do a little bit of digging on. If you do actually end up getting this spreadsheet via the description below, I may have something in here eventually if I can figure something out that I think works well for people. So in the next video, what I want to do is explain to you how you can use this master sheet and create filters and really filter the information down to what matters to you most. And I'm also going to go through each of these columns and explain some of the things if you're not familiar with what the difference between a scalloped board or a solid board is, or why you might want 4 sides over 3 sides or vice versa when it comes to the cap on the board. I'm going to get into all of that in the next video on the screen. You can click right now. So if you click on that video on the screen, I will again go into all the different materials and information on here to help you purchase the right deck for your needs.